There's something deeply unsettling about a smiling face frozen in time. A bright-eyed young woman standing in front of a breathtaking landscape, her Instagram caption filled with optimism. It was a capture of a perfect moment, a perfect life. But behind that carefully curated image lay something far more disturbing, a sinister reality that no filter could conceal. Gabby Petito was just 22 when she set out on what she thought would be the adventure of a lifetime, a cross-country road trip with her fiancé, Brian Laundrie, exploring America's most beautiful landscapes and documenting every step for the world to see. Yet as their journey unfolded, the dream began to crack. Behind the viral photos, the romantic captions, and the illusion of happiness, there existed fear, control, and abuse. What began as an idyllic love story soon spiraled into something much darker. A desperate cry for help was caught on police body cam footage, a final, cryptic message haunting in its ambiguity. And then there was silence. When Brian Laundrie returned home alone, driving their shared van, her family immediately sensed that something was terribly wrong. By the time they raised the alarm, it was too late. Gabby had vanished, and soon the entire world would become obsessed with finding her. Before the headlines, the search parties, and the world's attention, Gabby Petito was simply a young woman with dreams, a sense of adventure, and a passion for storytelling. Born in Blue Point, New York in 1999, Gabby grew up in a tight-knit family and cultivated a love for travel, photography, and sharing her experiences online. Her social media accounts overflowed with sunlit landscapes, candid moments, and heartfelt captions, each post painting a vivid picture of a life brimming with adventure and love. And love was exactly what she believed she had found in Brian Laundrie. The two met in high school, forming a connection that felt fated in the exuberance of youth. Yet, as with many love stories, the reality was far more complicated than any fairy tale. Sometimes the narrative of romance hides warnings beneath its enchanting surface. On the outside, their relationship appeared idyllic, two free spirits embracing a nomadic lifestyle, capturing their journeys for the world to see. However, beneath that picturesque exterior, subtle issues emerged. Friends and family began to notice warning signs, moments when Brian's behavior turned controlling, dismissive, and possessive, suggesting that not everything was as perfect as it seemed. A road trip can bring people closer together, or it can tear them apart. For Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie, the issues in their relationship widened into seemingly unbridgeable chasms. They set off in July 2021, hitting the open road in a 2012 Ford Transit Connect van that had been converted into a cozy camper full of dreams of exploring America's most breathtaking landscapes. Every stop was carefully recorded on Instagram, covering routes from Utah to Wyoming, Colorado to Montana. Gabby even planned to launch a YouTube channel to showcase their emerging van life. On social media, everything appeared perfect. Yet, as is often the case with online portrayals, those images were merely highlights, hiding a far more complicated reality. Brian was controlling. Friends later revealed that he would belittle Gabby, speak condescendingly to her, and criticize both what she did and how she did it. He didn't just want to be her partner, he insisted on being the one in control. Gabby's social media posts had subtly shifted in tone. Gone were the carefree, glowing smiles. They'd been replaced with carefully worded captions, forced poses, and long silences between updates. She even stopped FaceTiming with her family as often, and when they did speak, something just felt off. Then came the first public sign of trouble. On August 12, 2021, in Moab, Utah, a concerned witness dialed 911 after seeing a man slap a woman on the street. That man was Brian, the woman was Gabby. By the time the police arrived, they discovered the couple pulled over in their van outside Arches National Park. The subsequent body cam footage would later serve as haunting evidence, a desperate cry for help that nobody recognized at the time. Gabby was visibly distraught, crying uncontrollably and struggling to form coherent sentences. In stark contrast, Brian remained calm, composed, and cooperative. The officers did what they thought was best. They separated the two for the night. Gabby was assigned van and Brian was sent to a motel, but no arrests were made. The initial call had been about Brian allegedly striking Gabby. However, he also had cuts and bruises on his face. It was one of those difficult moments in policing when both parties were clearly at fault. Gabby apologized for being upset. She took the blame and protected Brian, a textbook response seen in cases of emotional abuse. Had the events unfolded differently that day, would Gabby still be alive? Well, perhaps. It's easy to analyze the incident in hindsight, but it's much harder when you're in the midst of it. Both were instructed not to contact each other that night, yet just a few hours later they reunited and quietly left Moab. The police report was filed away. No further action was taken. 2 weeks later, Gabby Petito was nowhere to be found. After the Moab police stop, Gabby and Brian continued on their journey. However, something had definitely shifted. The tension, once hidden beneath the surface, now seeped openly into every interaction. Over the next 2 weeks, Gabby's communication with her family dwindled. The bubbly, eager texts that once flooded her mother's phone were replaced by brief, sporadic messages. Although she continued posting on Instagram, something in her captions had changed. They felt generic, lacking the warmth and detail that she was known for. Eventually, her posts just stopped altogether. The last confirmed sighting of Gabby occurred on August 27, 2021, at a Wyoming restaurant called the Merry Piglets. Witnesses recalled Brian engaging in an aggressive argument with the staff while Gabby stood outside, visibly upset and crying. One bystander mentioned that she appeared frightened and deeply distressed. That was the last time that anybody saw her alive. On August 30th, Gabby's mother, Nicole Schmidt, received a strange text from Gabby's phone that immediately set off alarm bells. The message read, "Can you help Stan? I just keep getting his voicemails and missed calls." Although Gabby never used her grandfather's first name, referring to him simply as Stan, her mother immediately sensed that something was wrong. A few days later, another bizarre message arrived. "No service in Yosemite." It made sense. Yosemite is in California, hundreds of miles away from where Gabby was last seen. The message felt staged, like a cover-up, almost as if someone else was sending the messages. Then, 3 days later, on September 1st, 2021, Brian Laundrie arrived back at his parents' home in Northport, Florida. He was driving the van alone. Gabby was not with him. There was no explanation. There was nothing. He refused to answer questions. He refused to tell her family where she was. And just like that, it was as if she'd never existed. Gabby's parents were frantic. They reached out to Brian's family, desperate for answers, but were met with nothing but silence. Something was terribly wrong. By September 11th, after days of radio silence, Gabby's parents officially reported her missing. In an instant, what had once been a dream road trip spiraled into a full-blown missing persons case. The Laundries quickly secured legal counsel and refused to speak with authorities. Once again, body cam footage captured the moment police attempted to speak with Brian's parents at their door. Suspicious hardly begins to cover it. The media soon picked up on the story. True crime communities erupted with theories, and TikTok sleuths analyzed every detail, every Instagram post, police report, every tiny inconsistency. The world watched intently, piecing together the puzzle. Yet behind closed doors, one person already knew exactly what had happened. While Gabby's parents frantically searched for their daughter, Brian stayed holed up at his parents' Florida home, refusing to speak with the police. He had returned 10 days earlier, driving Gabby's van, yet offered no explanation for her whereabouts. He wouldn't return calls or respond to messages, and his parents remained silent, distant, and entirely unhelpful. 5 days after Gabby was reported missing, Brian did something that only deepened the mystery. He vanished as well. On September the 17th, Brian's parents reported him missing, claiming that he had left several days earlier to go hiking in Carlton Reserve, a 25,000-acre wilderness area in Florida. Their account was flimsy and riddled with inconsistencies. Some even suspected that Brian had never been in the reserve at all, that his parents had helped him escape, giving him time to flee before alerting the authorities. Meanwhile, the search for Gabby intensified. Authorities scoured national parks, focusing on the last place she was seen, Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. Police requested any videos or photographs taken in and around the park during the time that Gabby and Brian were believed to have been there. Shortly thereafter, a video surfaced, captured by another couple, showing a white transit van parked at a campsite. Search efforts ramped up even further as drones, dogs, and horseback riders fanned out across the terrain. On September the 19th, just 8 days after Gabby Petito was reported missing, authorities discovered her body in a remote area of the park. The cause of death was later determined to be strangulation. This was no accident, nor was it a case of a hiker simply getting lost. Gabby had been murdered. While one question had been answered, a far more pressing mystery loomed. Where was Brian Laundrie? At this point, the story exploded into international obsession. Gabby's murder was no longer just news, it felt like a real-life true crime thriller. Every detail, every new lead, and every possible sighting of Brian Laundrie was meticulously dissected online by an eager public. Yet amid the frenzy, an uncomfortable conversation emerged. Gabby Petito's disappearance gripped the world. Her image was ubiquitous on news broadcasts, social media feeds, and front pages across the globe. Millions watched as authorities embarked on an intense search for her, and when her body was eventually discovered, the shared sense of loss was unmistakable. Yet a difficult question lingers. Why did Gabby's case spark a national obsession when thousands of other individuals vanished without a hint of public notice? Many sociologists refer to this phenomenon as missing white woman syndrome, a media bias that disproportionately highlights missing white women, particularly those who are young, attractive, and middle class. Within just a month, Gabby's case generated over 1,000 articles in major US outlets. In stark contrast, the names and faces of thousands of missing Indigenous and Black women rarely trend, and their stories do not flood social media timelines. In 2020 alone, more than 268,000 women were reported missing in the US. Yet cases like Petito's receive a level of coverage that many others simply don't. Consider Indigenous women. Although they make up just 1% of the US population, in some states they account for 10% of all missing persons cases. Their stories, however, are scarcely reported, if they are reported at all. In Wyoming, for instance, where Gabby's body was eventually found, 710 Indigenous women were reported missing between 2011 and 2020. The saddest part is that many of us likely couldn't name a single one. We don't like to talk about it, but the truth is that the media influences whose lives we value. It determines who receives search teams, FBI involvement, and national outrage, and who is left in the shadows, forgotten. Now, Gabby's death, it was a tragedy, yet it also forced us to take a broader look at all the other missing people whose stories never received the same spotlight. With Gabby's body found and the cause of death confirmed as strangulation, there was no doubt that this was murder. The only suspect was Brian Laundrie. Yet Brian had vanished. Law enforcement launched an intensive search, deploying helicopters and drones to comb through the swampy, gator-infested reserve. Days turned into weeks, and there was just no sign of him. Theories ran wild. Had he fled the country? Reported sightings in Canada, Mexico, and even South America only deepened the mystery. Was he perhaps hiding in plain sight, receiving help or shelter from someone who sympathized with him? Speculation grew even more when his parents, refusing to cooperate with the police, seemed to be withholding crucial information. A search of their home uncovered a letter written to Brian by his mother, ominously marked with "burn after reading" on the envelope. The letter read, "I just want you to remember that I will always love you, and I know you will always love me. You are my boy. Nothing can make me stop loving you. Nothing will ever divide us. No matter what we do, where we go, or what we say, we will always love each other. If you're in jail, I'll bake a cake with a file hidden in it. If you need to dispose of a body, I'll show up with a shovel and garbage bags." Now, this wasn't a concrete piece of evidence, but it did serve as a glaring signpost. Police efforts within the Carlton Reserve had been hampered by high water levels in many areas, but as the waters receded, the search expanded. On October the 19th, Brian's parents arrived looking for their son and were met by investigators. What happened next remains unclear, but later that day, skeletal remains were discovered, reportedly by his parents, along with Brian's personal effects. The hunt was over. Among Brian's belongings, a notebook was discovered. It was water-damaged, barely legible, yet one chilling detail stood out. He had confessed. In his final handwritten words, Brian Laundrie admitted to killing Gabby. The account was jumbled, describing Gabby as being in unspeakable pain and stating that he had, in his own words, mercifully ended her misery. None of this, however, lined up with what investigators had uncovered in the Grand Tetons. There would be no trial, no courtroom confession, and no chance for Gabby's family to confront the man responsible for taking their daughter's life. Brian had chosen to end his own with a gunshot to the head. Gabby Petito's story did not conclude with her murder. What followed was a legal battle that exposed even deeper wounds, accusations of deceit, complicity, and a chilling level of indifference. In 2022, Gabby's parents filed a lawsuit against Brian's parents, alleging that they knew about her murder while the nation was desperately searching for her. The lawsuit claimed that the Laundries not only withheld critical information, but also arranged a vacation in Fort DeSoto while Gabby's body remained undiscovered in Wyoming. The Petitos argued that while they pleaded for answers, the Laundries remained silent, protecting their son instead of helping bring closure to a grieving family. The case took an even darker turn when Roberta Laundrie's letter to Brian surfaced, in which she offered to help him bury a body. Although she later insisted that the letter had been written before Gabby's murder, the implications were impossible to ignore. In 2023, the Laundries settled the lawsuit by paying the Petito family $3 million in damages, a symbolic victory that will never bring Gabby back. Gabby Petito's story did not just reveal the darkness of one relationship. It exposed something far larger, a pattern, a failure, and a reality that has been unfolding for centuries. Her murder was not an isolated incident, but a textbook example of domestic violence playing out in real time. It was captured on social media, recorded on police body cam footage, and heard in her trembling voice as she apologized for crying. Her death should have been preventable, but it wasn't. And here's where the conversation often stops, because for all its heartbreak, Gabby's case was one of the rare instances that captured the world's attention. Every year, more than 600,000 people go missing in the US alone. While many are eventually found, tens of thousands remain lost, slipping through the cracks of a system that doesn't search for them with the same dedication. In 2020, nearly 100,000 black women and girls were reported missing. None of their names made headlines the way that Gabby Petito's did. And then there are Indigenous women, whose disappearances have become so common that they are known collectively as the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women Crisis. In certain regions, Native women are up to 10 times more likely to be murdered than the national average, yet they rarely receive front-page coverage. There are no viral hashtags, continuous news cycles, or immediate FBI task forces mobilized in response. Gabby Petito's case, it did deserve attention, of course. However, so do all the others. The true tragedy lies in the fact that while the world mourned her loss, thousands of other families grieved in silence, waiting for a justice system and a media landscape that would never come looking for their daughters, their wives, their mothers. Thank you for watching.